Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Daily Dizzle Weekend Update for the weekend of Saturday, January 29th and Sunday, January 30th, 2011. It's Tommy Dizzlemits here, as always. We got a few things to cover, so let's not waste any time so we can make this as brief and painless as possible. We're going to start with the box office estimates for the weekend. We were going to try and do a Saturday weekend update, but a few things like work and busyness kind of prevented that, not to mention the fact that the box office numbers were nothing to write home about. The Rite, which was the Anthony Hopkins movie with the demons and exorcisms, and we've seen the movie 1,000 times with lesser heard of actors and better heard of actors or whatever. Same goddamn movie that you've seen with about an exorcism 1,000 times before. Ended up only making just over $5 million on Friday. So right now it's pegged to be just over $15 million for the weekend. Which is okay, I guess. Really, the movies are just not performing as strongly as everyone has been expecting. Meanwhile, last week's winner, No Strings Attached, got bumped down to the second spot. Dropped around 30%, which is actually a very good hold, about right for a well-performing romantic comedy. Especially for an R-rated movie to drop that low is actually showing that maybe it's getting some good word of mouth going. It made $13.5 million for the weekend. Its total sits at just shy of $40 million after its first 10 days. Meanwhile, the other opener from the weekend, The Mechanic, is the third movie to come out from CBS Films. The first two really didn't do that well. You had Faster, which was The Rock, the one with him and being a driver and shit. It just came out in November, and barely anyone can remember it. And then before that, at the beginning of 2010, you had Extraordinary Measures, the most recent Harrison Ford bomb to come out of the box office. Him and Brendan Fraser made like just over $10 million. So far, CBS isn't doing the greatest job in the world promoting their films or with their film department. But at least The Mechanic opened to over $10 million. Right now, the estimates put it at $11.5 million, which is about in the range for a typical Jason Statham opener. So that's only helping him in the long run. Meanwhile, number 4 was The Green Hornet. It made $11.5 million for the weekend. It's sitting just shy of $80 million. So it's continuing to do well. It should end up. Originally, they said that Green Hornet was performing exactly the same in its first week that Kick-Ass did, just on a higher level. But they were doubting that it would cross $80 million or get much further beyond that, but it's showing that it might stand a chance of crossing $100 million in the next couple of weeks, so we'll keep updated on that. Meanwhile, number 5 was The King's Speech. Had another bump up because it added another 800 theaters, so it's sitting at like 2,500 theaters right now, about 4 times as much as it started at, and the word of mouth is just still going. I mean, it had a bigger per theater average than The Mechanic, and it's been out 9 weeks compared to Mechanic being out 0. So, yeah, it ended up making $11 million for the weekend, sitting at $72 million after its first 9 full weeks in theaters. So, really, I can only imagine what it's going to take to make that movie go away. Though I'm hoping if the Weinsteins end up releasing the cut-down versions of it, that people will understand that they're just trying to whore it out, and then might see that maybe they shouldn't be seeing it. Meanwhile, number 6, another Oscar contender, True Grit, ended up with $7.6 million for the weekend. It is sitting at over $148,000 after 38 days in release. Number 7 was The Dilemma. Had another not great drop, ended up dropping 40%. It's sitting at $40 million right now after 3 weeks. It might make its budget back, hopefully. Black Swan, meanwhile, number 8, with an extra $5 million in the till. It is sitting at over $90 million. So right now, it's inevitable when it will cross the $100 million mark. Could be by next weekend. We'll have the full coverage of that, though. Meanwhile, Fighter, at number 9, ended up having $4 million for the weekend. It is sitting at under $80 million. Yogi Bear was number 10, holding down the 10th spot. Yogi Bear has been. And people were saying, oh, it's not performing as good as Alvin and the Chipmunks, but it's still hanging around just as long as that one did after the holidays. It added another $3 million over the weekend. It sits at $92.5 million, so honestly, at this point, I think you can expect it to cross $100 million. It's going to do a snail's pace crawl to it, but it will still end up crossing that mark. Meanwhile, number 11 was Tron Legacy, made over $2.5 million on the weekend. It's sitting at shy $167 million, so it's within like $3.5 million of its $170 million budget, just on the American side of things, not even taking into account the hundreds of millions of dollars it's made around the world. So, really, Tron Legacy, even though it wasn't the huge success story like Avatar was last holiday season, it's still a phenomenal success story given its genre, considering it's a sequel to a movie that not many people remember. You compare modern-day sequels to a lot of the originals that came out, and even though they make more money nowadays, they're not selling as many tickets and don't have as many audience members seeing it. Tron Legacy, though, if you try and compare it to the other original one, and you do it inflation, you do opening weekend, you do all of that, and Tron Legacy has surpassed the audience of the first one. So congrats on that. There's a lot of movies that haven't done that. Like Wall Street, the one that came out earlier this year, the sequel, Money Never Sleeps, ended up doing something like a quarter, not even, of the attendance of the original Wall Street. So sometimes it works out better than others, as in the case of Tron Legacy. Meanwhile, rounding out the top 12, we also have another Disney movie making over $2.5 million for the weekend, Tangled. Tangled has been out and in the box office just as long as The King's Speech. And granted, though, it started out in the wider release, so they've kind of switched spots. They're both hanging in there. Tangled is actually sitting just shy of $190 million. So honestly, I think it's going to be with the case of Yogi Bear doing a snail's pace to cross 100 million. Tangled has no problem doing the same thing because Disney movies at the end tend to get their most money in those last couple weeks where you don't even know the damn thing is out there anymore. So that is the breakdown of the estimates from this weekend. We will have the actual results come in on Monday. With the Super Bowl a week away, of course, it is NFL Pro Bowl Sunday. It takes a little bit more work to get excited for the Pro Bowl because you know it really doesn't matter. But at the very least, it's a good game to be able to see a lot of people that you didn't think you'd see on the field again. Personally, I think this will be the game that Michael Vick tries to redeem himself for the fact that once people were like, "Oh man, you were doing awesome, you're doing awesome," he was like, "Guys, you shouldn't talk yet," and then he fucked up from there. I mean, he was able to at least accurately say, "You guys shouldn't call it too early." But still, this is going to be, his redemption game. He's going to have to show that he doesn't suck as much as he did in the last couple months of play. And even if he just does a little something here and there, people will be like, "Oh, maybe he really was just hurt for those last couple months of playing," and that's why the Eagles fucking bombed out at the end of the season. Regardless, though, I have to go with the NFC side of things, only because Peyton Manning's on the AFC side of things. No matter what I do to try and predict Peyton Manning's games, he always manages to fuck me over. Thanks. Of course, there's going to be a lot of big news coming out with the Steelers and the Packers in the next couple of days. This weekend, got news bits on both of them. Not necessarily the greatest things in the world going into the Super Bowl for either team, but they're headline-worthy stories. Well, let's start on the Steelers side of things. They're going to be without their rookie starting center. He was injured in the last game with the Jets, even though he had guaranteed he was going to make it on to the Super Bowl, and he was going to play, and he was going to be there. Looks like you shouldn't guarantee shit when you can't even fucking walk on your leg after one play of the game. The rest of the game, he was on crutches. Every time they showed him, he couldn't put weight on the legs, and he's guaranteeing that he's going to make it to the biggest game of the season. What a fucking idiot. Don't even spit in the face of fate like that. I mean, even if I just fucking thought I rolled my ankle, I would say, I don't know, dude, questionable. Don't say, "Yeah, I can do it," because if you do that, you know you're just going to fuck yourself over. But regardless, I don't care about the Steelers fucking themselves over. I personally hope they lose. I'm having flashbacks to Favre's Super Bowl victory when he was on the Packers when I was a kid. And I think the time might be right, and Aaron Rodgers might be ready to ascend to the throne and take the spot that Favre held so near and dear for so long. And ever since he left, they've been looking for a replacement. Rodgers is that replacement. Regardless, though, speaking of the Packers and Rodgers, there was a little bit of a debate on Twitter, I guess, with a bunch of the team members. Apparently, the Super Bowl team photo was going to be taken before all the injured Packers players who were on injured reserve were going to be in town. Caused a little bit of an uproar, so then they ended up moving the picture to Friday, making everyone happy. So then Rodgers went out and was talking, "Oh, well, there's people on injured reserve who, if you want to get back from being injured, you got to train, you got to make sure you get better. And there's some people who aren't doing that, And we had some stupid fight starting, and those awesome, AIM and Facebook and MySpace fights that would always start between people where you'd have, little talking going on, and then they'd start fighting with each other, and at the end, one of them would be like, "Oh, goodbye MySpace," or "Goodbye everyone, I'm deleting my shit." That is exactly what the injured player did. So, I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers was right for calling the other guy out, but for the other guy to go on, a couple little rants online and then end it with, "Oh, I'm deleting my shit," might show you who is a little bit more in the right. Anybody who was ever in elementary school and ran around telling people to suck it must have watched professional wrestling. Obviously, it's fake. No different than, TV or movies. If you look even at the ratings for wrestling in the last couple of years, it's the same as with the box office, where attendance is down. You know, they're finding other ways to make up the money lost, so they're not losing money, but they're not getting as much attention as they normally have. That's why currently, with the WWE, you've got The Miz, who used to be on The Real World, like the 10th season. If anyone who watches MTV currently can even remember that far back, because I think they stopped numbering, which is kind of a lack of respect for history. But regardless, you've got The Miz, Mike Mizanin, who is their current WWE champion. That's their way of trying to at least have someone that they know was appealing to the masses and was a draw of some kind in some other area of entertainment. So we've got the Royal Rumble tonight, which is fun. Obviously it's fake, obviously it's planned. Normally, though, it's a 30-man match. You got guys coming out every 2 minutes. It's cool, though, just to see that amount of people in, the surprises of it, almost like a Christmas morning for rednecks. This year it's fun, though, for the fact that they upped it from 30 to 40. 40 guys are going to be in the ring, not necessarily at the same time. That's where they always try and get you on the hype. Anyone who hasn't watched wrestling has to realize, if they say 40 guys, you're not going to see all 40 guys at once. Regardless, though, there's 40 guys in the match this year. They had up to 34 people confirmed the other day, and since then, you've had some rumors and some legends confirming. Like Papa Shango, old school wrestler. Good to see him pop up every so often. He's going to be one of the surprises, as confirmed by one of the WWE superstars. So that's not anything that's a spoiler, considering if you read Twitter and you keep up on the wrestlers, you can find that information. Meanwhile, there's a few other ones, at least 5 spots open. And while 2 of them haven't really been said one way or another, there are 3 potential names coming up for the other ones that are all pretty big, because they're all guys that have not been seen in a WWE wrestling ring in a couple years. First, you have Triple H, which, he's granted he still works for the company. He's only been out for, like, not even a year. But still, he's one of the most recognizable guys. Anyone who watched as a kid knows that Triple H was the ones who taught them how to do the crotch chop. But the big one, and personally my favorite, and what should be the favorite bit of information for anyone who's seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, Kevin Nash, Dizzle, or Shredder. You guys would know him as Shredder. But he will be making his return tonight, rumored. Apparently, there was someone who sent in online that their friend had a... But really, the third one is the big one. Anyone who ever had a childhood, ever liked the Ninja Turtles, never saw the second Ninja Turtles movie, this is something that is relevant to all of you. You remember Shredder? Of course everyone knows Shredder, but you remember Shredder from the movie. He was a particularly badass guy, huge, 7-foot tall actor. Kevin Nash, who was a wrestler, Dizzle, years ago in the WWE, but everyone knows him as Kevin Nash nowadays. He was in The Longest Yard with Adam Sandler. He's done a few other movies since as well. He was in the Punisher movie, the original with Tom Jane. He was the dude in the Waldo shirt. Even though he's 50-plus years old at this point, and his career should definitely be winding down, he may be making a surprise return to the Rumble tonight. As the story goes, as it started to unfold earlier this weekend, someone in an airline company who happened to be a wrestling fan and happened to see the flight itinerary managed to see Kevin Nash booked on a flight from Florida to Boston, 5 p.m. Saturday night. So as we said, those are just rumored entrants right now. Of course, we're going with whatever evidence we can find, and the evidence is, like we said, pointing a little bit more towards the positive, especially in the case of Triple H and Kevin Nash. If you go on Shawn Michaels' Twitter account, Shawn Michaels, of course, was in the clique with those 2 years ago, and he's been posting all day saying, I'm getting calls from Boston from my friends who are there, the Rumble's going to be great, you know, being very, very, very vague and suggestive about it. So, as we said, you know, it's not confirmed that they're all going to return, but it's not every day that you have 3 former world champions who might return in the same match. That's all the time we've got on today's Daily Dizzle Weekend Update. We thank you guys for joining us, as always, and we hope you were able to learn a few new things today. If you haven't checked us out before and this is your first time, don't forget to check us out every day during the week. We do a Daily Dizzle Monday through Friday on top of the Weekend Update. And in case you guys missed it and all that chit-chat and, you know, getting into it, yes, I know wrestling is fake. I also know that NCIS is fake. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop watching it and can't find some entertainment value in it. So as always, we do thank you guys for joining us. I am Tommy Dizzlemits on behalf of the Daily Dizzle and the Weekend Update. We will see you all this week and back here next weekend.